Hello, it's Justin Heyer with LongRangeOnly.com. Today in this review we're going to be looking at the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2, and I'll take you through everything I've learned about it over the last year. Here you can see the PST2 on my Browning T-Bolt 22 long rifle. It's actually been a really fun scope to have on this gun. It's made shooting this 22 quite a bit of fun. You can see it is in fact the 5-25 by 50. 30 millimeter main tube. I'm running some Vortex rings on this setup. They've been really nice. Overall length of the scope is 16 inches. Weight is listed at 31.2 ounces. Mine came in right around there at 31.5. I'm perfectly happy with that. 70 minutes of available adjustment in the turrets is what's listed, and we'll talk about that a little bit more during the turret tracking portion. There is a parallax knob on the far side that you can't see that we'll go over in a minute, but it does go from 25 to infinity. And then this is the second focal plane model. It is only available in one reticle and only available in MOA. The reticle is the EBR4. It is labeled every 4 minutes, as you can see right here in this picture. The crosshair is actually very thin. It's 2 MOA in each direction in the very center, and it's only 0.078 minutes thick, so it's very, very thin. And then the subtensions, once you get out past those 2 minutes, they're 0.16 MOA, so it's a little bit easier to see, but still provides a plenty fine aiming point if that's what you need. It's not a Christmas tree style reticle. It's simple grid, very clean. A lot of guys are really going to like it. All right, let's walk through the controls of this scope real quick. We'll start off on the left side of the scope. You have your parallax knob and your illumination settings. This most outward portion is where you control the illumination. It is a little thin for my fingers. I feel like I kept grabbing, I wanted to be able to grab just a little bit more. But for as often as you're not going to touch it, it's nice, and it's got plenty of resistance so that you're never going to have it accidentally turn on. And it does have an offsetting between every level, which is nice. There's a little coin slot right here. You can just pop that battery cover off and replace the battery as needed. All right, we'll move on to the mag ring. You can see it is a little ribbed ring. You can easily adjust through the whole magnification range, and the ocular does not spin. It has a fast focus eyepiece, which is just out of frame, but that's easy to get dialed into your eyes. On this mag ring, it is just a little bit difficult to adjust quickly, so you may want to grab a throw lever or something like that if you adjust mag range frequently, but it's definitely got enough grip you can get a hold of it and get it to the magnification you want. Turrets, these are great turrets. This is a for a $1,000-ish scope, turrets feel great. Nice and crisp. I'm not sure how well you could hear that, but they're very audible. They're not terribly difficult to get to move into the next detent, but they're very positive when they do. So if you're sliding this in and out of a scabbard, you'll definitely want to pay attention to your windage knob. They do move easy enough that could move. And then the elevation turret has a 0 stop, so that's pretty easy to always double check that you're back on 0. Just crank it down till it stops. All right, let's talk about the eye box. I put a lot of people behind this scope. It sat on a Mesa long range that I reviewed, and I don't know how many people got behind it, but it was a lot. It's something I really wanted to let people experience, and most people walked away loving this scope. They loved the reticle. They thought it was relatively easy to get behind, but there were a few that complained that for the price they thought that eye box was a little too tight. I do have to agree that it is tighter than some in its price range, but it's better than others, so everything's a compromise. It's not terribly difficult. A brand new shooter may struggle. If you've ever been behind a scope before in your life, you're going to get behind it just fine. And the glass. Glass was plenty adequate. Decent amount of resolution, decent amount of brightness. Combine that with a reticle that's pretty spot on, and it's not hard to make shots. You will notice a little more glare or flare than some scopes in this price range, but it's actually comparable to other scopes I've used that are twice as much money as well. So that's just kind of the prescription they chose to go with. I don't think you're ever going to miss a shot due to glass quality on this unless you're in a real high glare or high flare situation, and in that case, a lot of scopes are going to give you the same troubles. So overall, pleasing optical package, especially for the price point. All right, let's talk about the turrets a little more in depth. Great knurling on them. They're a good size to grab and just twist. The windage knob is marked appropriately with left and right windage. 25 minutes per rev in the elevation turret, and it does have indicators on the second revolution, numbers, excuse me, that tell you where you're at in terms of the total travel. To set the zero stop, this is a little different. If you're not used to the RZR system, you need to be aware that you have to actually pull this cap off. 2mm wrench, there's 3 set screws, and you can lift this right off. Once you have that done, you loosen the 3 set screws around that inner turret, and now there is a scale to let you see what you're doing, because at this point your clicks are disengaged and it just becomes like a friction-based turret. You sight in, just spinning this with no clicks. Once you're zeroed, you tighten those set screws back up. You put your turret back on at 0. Sorry, let me get it on there. Hard on camera. Tighten your 3 set screws up, and you're good to go. I did not read the instructions manual before I took this scope out. Didn't know. Just used this turret like I would normally use to zero. Went to set the zero stop and realized that I had done it wrong. So I was able to kind of reverse calculate how many minutes I was up from the bottom on this turret. I spun it all the way down, followed the instructions, spun that inner turret up as many minutes as I thought, and I think I was within a minute, minute and a half with that 0 set. So I was pretty close, but just so you are aware, that's how you do that. Vortex has a great video on that. I recommend you go watch it if you have any questions. Now, actual turret tracking. I did this test on my 22. It has 70 minutes of listed adjustment, and when I zeroed at 50 yards, I had 32 minutes, within a click or two, we'll call it 32 minutes of dial-up. So I shot a tall turret test. It was perfect at 10 and at 20, but at 30 I was just short. I was a full minute short. So I checked and made sure I had actually dialed the 30 minutes. Then I got behind the scope and watched, and as I was twisting this turret up, once it hit 29 minutes, even though the turret continued to click and move, the reticle was not moving anymore. So I essentially ran out of elevation even though the turret was giving me a few more clicks. So I think total listed elevation was about where it needed to be, but those last few being dead is something to be aware of. You should actually check that on any scope you have. That's not an uncommon problem on a lot of different scopes to have your turret travel change in that last few clicks. So check that. But it did dial perfectly through those 29 minutes, and then I actually dialed down and shot additional, so I got 50 or 60 minutes of total travel, and it was dead on the money other than when those clicks went dead. So I'm pretty happy with that other than that little hiccup at the top. Now, I did want to check the total overall travel. I called Vortex. They gave me instructions on how to reset the zero stop to factory settings, and now that I did that, I have 100 minutes of dial-up in this turret. As I watch behind the scope, it seems to move throughout the entire travel, so I'm not quite sure why that picked me up a little bit of extra turret travel. However, the first minute or two off the bottom doesn't seem to move quite as far as what it does after. I don't have a calibrated scale to show that to you, but that's something I've noticed. But all the way up till I hit 100 minutes, the reticle is now moving with every click of the turret. So I'll watch that a little bit more as I shoot this. I generally haven't maxed this scope out, so I don't worry about it. Like I said, track perfectly through 50 or 60 minutes of turret travel other than right at the very top. So any questions on those turrets, be sure and hit us up on the website. There's a link in the description. As you can see, as we've gone through all the features of this scope, it offers a lot in that $1,000 price point. This has really become an area in scopes where you get a lot of bang for your buck. In this case, you get great fill in turrets, you get adequate glass. It's not terribly heavy, but it's not necessarily ultralight either. Good controls. It's a good scope. There's a reason why a lot of guys like it. So if you have any other questions on this, go ahead and reach out to us on the link in the bottom of the description on this video, and follow us on all our different social media outlets on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, come visit the website for the full discussion. Thanks for watching.